By sunrise, Elowen Marris had dried a rain-soaked wolf with 3 towels, ruined every clean sheet she owned, and learned something no one in Valadrake would have believed. The missing Alpha King would rather face a royal search party than leave her fire. Ellie knew none of that when she first found him. Rain had been falling over Grayfen since noon, turning the forest road into a narrow river of black mud. Water drummed against pine branches. Thunder rolled beyond the northern mountains, and the air carried the rich smell of wet bark, crushed herbs, and cold stone. Ellie hurried beneath the hood of her faded green cloak, pulling a wooden cart behind her. At 24, she had become very good at doing difficult things alone. She washed linens for families in Briar Hollow, repaired clothing, prepared simple medicines, and lived in a little stone cottage at the edge of land no one else wanted. The villagers called it Rainmoss Cottage. They called her something less kind. Calamity Ellie. She had earned the name after a lifetime of small accidents involving ladders, spilled flour, runaway chickens, and one wedding table that everyone insisted she had destroyed. The table had collapsed by itself. Mostly. That afternoon, freshly washed linens lay beneath the canvas covering her cart. A basket containing 12 eggs rested on top. Ellie had promised Martha Bell that she would deliver everyone safely. One wheel struck a stone. The cart tilted. Ellie grabbed the basket, saved 11 eggs, lost one boot to the mud, and watched helplessly as a clean white sheet escaped beneath the canvas. The wind carried it over the side of a broken bridge. It settled across something enormous beneath the shattered beams. Ellie stood on one stockinged foot and stared. The something moved. A deep growl rose from beneath the sheet. "Oh," she whispered, "that is not a fallen tree." She recovered her boot, pushed her wet hair away from her face, and climbed carefully down the muddy bank. She nearly slipped once. Then, twice. On the third attempt, she caught herself on a thorn bush and looked upward with tired patience. "I am doing my best." The forest offered no sympathy. When she reached the bottom of the slope, she caught the edge of the sheet and slowly pulled it away. Her breath stopped. A black wolf lay beneath the ruined bridge. He was larger than any wolf she had ever seen. His shoulders were broad enough to belong to a warhorse, and his soaked fur looked darker than midnight beneath the rain. A broken length of silver chain remained tangled around one hind leg. One eye opened. It was silver. Not gray, not pale blue. Silver. It fixed on Ellie with a sharp, almost human intelligence. She froze. The wolf watched her. "I apologize for the laundry," she said softly. "It usually attacks chairs." His silver eye narrowed. Ellie noticed the wound beneath his ribs. Rain had washed away most of the blood, but the flesh around it was dark and swollen. A bitter metallic smell clung to his fur. Concern pushed aside caution. "You're hurt." The wolf exposed his teeth when she moved closer. The warning should have sent her running. Instead, she heard the weakness beneath it. His breathing was too heavy. His body trembled against the wet earth. Whatever strength remained inside him was being used to look dangerous. Ellie slowly lowered herself into the mud. "I understand," she whispered. "You don't know me." She removed the scarf from her neck and held it out so he could smell it. "I'm not going to hurt you." The wolf's claws pressed into the ground. Ellie moved her hand another inch. Her scent rose through the rain wild pear blossoms, warm oats, and thyme crushed beneath summer sunlight. The wolf went completely still. Deep inside the wounded animal, an instinct older than kingdoms lifted its head. Warm. Safe. Found. The reaction lasted only a heartbeat. Ellie did not see the meaning behind it. She only saw the terrible strain leave his jaw. Carefully, she pressed her scarf against his wound. His scent wrapped around her in return. Cedar smoke. Black tea. The sharp, clean air before lightning. Warmth spread beneath her palm. It traveled up her arm and settled behind her breastbone like the beginning of a second heartbeat. Ellie inhaled sharply. The wolf's breathing slowed. Neither of them understood what had happened. Ellie recovered first. "All right," she said. "You're coming home." The wolf looked toward the steep bank. Then he looked at her small cart. Ellie followed his gaze. "Yes, I can see the problem." It took 3 ropes, 2 fallen branches, the ruined sheet, and more determination than dignity to move him. At one point, Ellie planted both boots in the mud and pushed against his broad shoulder. "You could help a little." One black ear moved. "That is not helping." His tail shifted half an inch. Ellie narrowed her eyes. You understand me. The wolf closed his eye. By the time they reached Rainmoss Cottage, darkness had swallowed the forest. The little house stood beneath leaning pines, its stone walls wrapped in ivy and silver moss. Smoke rose from the chimney. Golden light glowed behind the windows. Inside, the cottage smelled of lavender soap, oat bread, dried apples, and rowan wood burning in the hearth. Ellie guided the wolf onto the rug before the fire. He lowered himself with a pained breath. Stay there. His expression suggested that he had not planned to do anything else. Ellie removed her wet cloak and returned with the smallest towel in the house. She dried one ear. Then she looked at the enormous rest of him. I may have underestimated how much wolf you are. He gave a quiet huff. Ellie turned to fetch another towel. Behind her, the wolf rose and shook himself violently. Cold water flew across the cottage. It covered the table, the chairs, the walls, and every clean garment Ellie had washed that day. Silence followed. Ellie slowly turned around. Water dripped from the end of her nose. The wolf lowered himself beside the fire and looked away. You did that on purpose. His tail struck the floor once. You are not charming enough to get away with that. The tail moved again. Outside, royal horns sounded through the rain. The wolf's head lifted. The notes traveled between the trees, low, urgent, and close. Ellie crossed to the window and lifted the curtain. Torchlight moved through the forest. A search party, she murmured. Another horn answered from the southern ridge. The wolf rose, but his injured leg failed beneath him. Ellie turned back at once. You're not going anywhere. His silver eye met hers. You can barely stand. He looked toward the door, then toward the fire. After a long moment, he lowered himself onto the rug again and placed one massive paw over Ellie's only dry apron. You are also lying on my laundry. He closed his eyes. In the royal capital, bells were ringing because Alpha King Cassian Veyr had disappeared during the worst storm in 10 years. Inside Rainmoss Cottage, the missing king refused to leave an Omega's hearth. The royal patrol reached the cottage shortly after dawn. Ellie had fallen asleep in an old chair beside the fire. Her mending remained in her lap, and a patched blanket covered her shoulders. She did not remember placing it there. The wolf was awake. He lay between her and the door, watching the windows as torchlight moved across the glass. A fist struck the wood. Royal Patrol, opened by order of the crown. Ellie sat up. The wolf's ears moved forward. She looked at him. He looked at her. Then, his gaze shifted toward the narrow storage room beside the kitchen. No, Ellie whispered, you will not fit. He rose anyway. A clay bowl rolled beneath one paw and shattered. Ellie closed her eyes. Very quiet. Excellent work. The knocking came again. She hurried toward the storage room, pulling the damp blanket behind her. After several whispered arguments, 2 stubborn huffs, and 1 painful collision with the doorframe, she managed to guide the wolf inside. Most of him fit. His tail did not. Ellie pushed it through the doorway. It slipped back out. Please cooperate. The tail flicked against her wrist. She pushed it inside again and shut the door. When she opened the front entrance, 3 royal guards stood beneath the rain. Water streamed from their dark armor. The tallest carried the silver wolf emblem of Stormfang pack across his chest. We are searching every home in Grayfen, he said. Have you seen an injured black wolf? Ellie tightened her fingers around the edge of the door. There are many wolves in Grayfen. This one is larger than normal. From the storage room came a dull thump. Ellie smiled too quickly. My flower fell. The guard looked over her shoulder. A second man stepped inside without permission. The scent entered with him. Beneath rain, steel, and wet leather lay something bitter and metallic. The wounded wolf recognized it immediately. Silver ash. The same poison that burned in his side. The same scent carried by the men who had ambushed him near the northern border. A growl shook the storage door. Every guard reached for a weapon. Ellie moved in front of it. Soot. Silence followed. The soldiers stared at her. She cleared her throat. My stove makes unusual sounds. The tallest guard looked deeply unconvinced. Inside the storage room, Cassian's claws dug into the wooden floor. The silver ash on the second guard's glove sharpened every violent instinct inside him. Enemy. Kill. Protect. Then, Ellie placed her palm against the door. Her scent slipped through the cracks. Easy, she whispered. You're safe. Her heartbeat reached him through the thin wood. Fast, but steady. Without meaning to, Cassian matched it. The growl faded. The patrol searched the cottage. They found only jars of herbs, folded laundry, one broken bowl, and more patched furniture than any royal soldier had likely seen in one room. The guard carrying silver ash paused beside Ellie's medicine shelf. Cassian memorized his scent. When the men finally left, Ellie waited until their torchlight vanished between the trees. Then she opened the storage room. Cassian stepped out with as much dignity as a giant wolf could manage, while carrying a sack of flour across his back. Ellie pressed her lips together. He shook the sack away. White powder filled the air. For one perfect moment, the feared crown wolf of Valadrake looked as though he had been rolled in pastry flour. Ellie laughed. She tried not to. She truly did. Cassian stared at her, deeply offended. "I'm sorry," she said, brushing flour from one black ear. "You look extremely dangerous." His tail struck the cupboard. That evening, she placed a bowl of broth before him. He smelled it and turned his head. "You need to eat." No response. Ellie moved the bowl closer. He moved his nose away. "You fought me less when I dragged you through the forest." The wolf continued staring at the wall. Ellie dipped 2 fingers into the broth and held them near his mouth. He ate immediately. She looked at him. "So this is about being difficult." Cassian refused to acknowledge the accusation. Over the next 2 days, the cottage changed around him. Ellie began leaving extra meat beside the fire. Cassian followed her whenever she carried firewood, although he pretended he had simply intended to walk in the same direction. When she climbed onto a chair to reach a jar, he caught the hem of her dress between his teeth and pulled her down. Ellie turned. "I have survived shelves before you arrived." He did not release the fabric. She used a broom handle instead. At night, she read beside the fire. Cassian rested with his head on his paws and listened. The book involved a foolish nobleman who repeatedly failed to tell the woman he loved the truth. Each time the character lied, Cassian growled. Ellie glanced over the page. "I agree. He is making this unnecessarily complicated." The wolf looked away. One night, Ellie paused halfway through the chapter. She had placed 2 bowls on the table, one for herself, one across from her. For a moment, sadness touched her face. "My father used to sit there," she explained quietly. "I still forget sometimes." Cassian watched her remove the second bowl. The loneliness in her scent was faint, but unmistakable. That night, after Ellie fell asleep in the chair, he caught the blanket in his teeth and pulled it over her shoulders. For the first time in years, his wolf stopped pacing inside him. Near midnight, the poison returned. Cassian's body arched beside the hearth. Black fur withdrew from one arm. Bones shifted. A human hand struck the floor. Ellie woke to the sound of his breath. A wounded man knelt beside the fire. Dark hair fell over his forehead. A bandage of black fur and blood seemed to ripple across his ribs. One eye was silver, the other was amber. Ellie stared. The stranger lifted his head. Recognition moved slowly through her. "Suit?" Pain crossed his face. Then black fur swept over his skin again, and the wolf collapsed at her feet. Ellie remained awake for the rest of the night. By morning, she no longer believed she had rescued an ordinary stray. She also no longer believed he was incapable of answering questions. The wolf refused to look at her while she cleaned his wound. "You were a man last night." One silver eye opened. That was not a question. He looked toward the fire. Ellie dipped the cloth into warm water. "You understand every word I say." His ear twitched. "You have been judging my cooking." Another twitch. "And I am almost certain you laughed when I fell into the wood basket." His tail moved once. Ellie pointed at him. "I knew it." Before she could continue, a voice sounded outside the cottage. "Black One." Cassian's head snapped toward the door. The man outside spoke quietly. "The northern gate is failing. Stormfang needs its tracker." Ellie looked at the wolf. "Tracker?" Cassian remained still. The voice belonged to Rowan Vale, the king's beta and oldest friend. He had followed the broken trail through 3 counties before finding Cassian's scent beneath Ellie's herbs and wood smoke. Rowan knew better than to speak the king's title where strangers might hear. "Malrek has taken control of the council," he continued. "I can hold the palace for 1 more day." Cassian released a low warning growl. Rowan understood. "I will return tomorrow." His footsteps faded into the forest. Ellie crossed her arms. You know that man. Cassian walked directly to the rug. He called you a royal tracker. Cassian lowered his head. Are you hiding from Stormfang? He closed his eyes. Coward. His tail covered his nose. Ellie tried to remain annoyed. It was difficult when one ear remained visible. That afternoon, Garrick Holt arrived. He was the acting alpha of Grafen Pack, a broad man with polished boots and the sour scent of someone who had never been told no often enough. He entered without waiting for permission. Your payment is late, he said. Ellie set down the bundle of herbs in her hands. I paid last month. The borderland fee increased. No notice was issued. Garrick smiled. An unmated Omega living alone should be grateful she has land at all. Cassian rose from the rug. A growl filled the cottage. Garrick's eyes moved toward him. What is that? A guest. It is dangerous. So are you, apparently, but I allowed you inside. Garrick's expression hardened. Ellie's voice remained soft, but she did not lower her gaze. My mother paid for this cottage. My father paid every winter tax. You do not own it. I represent Grafen authority. You represent yourself. Garrick stepped closer. Cassian moved between them. The black wolf's shoulders nearly reached Garrick's chest. His silver eye flashed. Without understanding why, Garrick lowered his head. The submission lasted only a second. He recovered with a flush of humiliation. Control your animal. Ellie folded her arms. He has better manners than some visitors. Garrick backed toward the door. This is not finished. After he left, Cassian turned toward Ellie. She had gone pale, but her hands remained steady. I am not helpless, she said. Cassian knew that. He had watched her drag a wolf twice her size through a storm. Still, he moved closer until his shoulder pressed against her leg. Ellie's expression softened. I know, she whispered. You are very frightening. She rested her hand on his head. The scent-masking pouch around her neck slipped from beneath her dress. Cassian caught the cord accidentally with one tooth. It snapped. The little cloth pouch fell to the floor. Dried herbs scattered across the boards. Ellie's true scent filled the cottage. Wild pear, warm oats, rain-soaked thyme, and beneath them, a soft trace of honey touched by fire. The rowan logs in the hearth turned silver. Cassian froze. The mark beneath his throat, a narrow line of silver fur, shaped like a broken crown, began to glow. Pain struck him without warning. The silver ash inside his wound ignited. He crashed against the table. A bowl shattered. His scent became cold and metallic. Ellie stepped backward. For one heartbeat, fear moved through her. Then, she saw his eyes. Not rage, agony. Soot. His claws tore across the floor. The beast inside him surged toward violence. Run. Destroy. Protect what is yours. Ellie did not know what lived inside the wolf's thoughts, but warmth burned beneath her breastbone. His pain traveled through the strange connection between them. She understood only one thing. He was losing himself. Ellie lowered herself to the floor. Look at me. Cassian snapped his jaws. She stopped beyond his reach. That was rude, she whispered, though her voice shook. He lunged. At the last second, he twisted aside and struck the stone hearth instead of her. The choice cost him what remained of his strength. He collapsed. Ellie rushed forward and placed both hands against his face. No. The word carried more authority than either of them expected. Cassian froze. She pressed her forehead to his. Her scent wrapped around him, warm and steady. Breathe with me. Ellie inhaled. For several terrible seconds, he could not follow. Then his chest rose. She exhaled. He matched her. Again. The silver flames climbed higher. Light traveled across the floor and gathered around Ellie's hands. Dark liquid seeped from Cassian's wound. The metallic scent weakened. His claws withdrew. The violence inside him grew quiet. Ellie remained against him until his breathing settled. When she leaned back, exhaustion had softened his eyes. Well, she murmured, brushing damp hair from her cheek. That was unpleasant. Cassian lowered his head into her lap. The gesture held no command and no pride. Only trust. Ellie stroked the fur between his ears. I'm not going anywhere. Inside Cassian, recognition moved deeper than instinct. Hearthkeeper. The lost bloodline had not disappeared. It had been living alone in a crooked cottage, apologizing to furniture and giving warmth to creatures everyone else feared. His wolf pressed one quiet feeling into his mind. Found. Later, Ellie prepared medicine from her mother's old box. Cassian smelled the bitter herbs and immediately closed his eyes. She stared at him. You are not asleep. He remained motionless. Suit. Nothing. Ellie leaned closer and pinched his nose. His eyes opened in outrage. There you are. She poured the medicine between his teeth. He swallowed, then gave her a look that had terrified armies. Ellie smiled sweetly. You're welcome. That evening, she examined her mother's medicine box. Beneath the jars, she found a symbol carved into the wood, a silver flame enclosed by a broken crown. It matched the shape beneath Cassian's throat. Ellie looked toward him. He was pretending to sleep again. This time, she let him. By dawn, Cassian could hold his human form. Ellie woke to the sound of a cupboard opening. The wolf was gone. A tall man stood in her kitchen wearing one of her blankets and an expression of great concentration. He had dark hair, broad shoulders, and several old scars across his chest. The wound beneath his ribs was still angry but healing. Ellie reached for the nearest weapon. It was a cast-iron skillet. The man slowly turned. One eye was silver, the other was amber. Soot. His jaw tightened. Ellie lowered the skillet by an inch. You are Soot. My name is Cass. You let me call you Soot for 4 days. I was unable to object. You knocked over 3 bowls. The poison affected my balance. You stole my blanket. That was instinct. Ellie stared at him. Cassian had faced armed rebellions with less discomfort. You need clothes, she said. Yes. And explanations. His expression became guarded. Yes. She found an old shirt and trousers that had belonged to her father. The sleeves ended above Cassian's wrists, and the trousers revealed more ankle than any king should have shown with dignity. Ellie pressed her lips together. Do not laugh, he warned. I would never. Her shoulders moved. Cassian narrowed his eyes. Over breakfast, he told her his name was Cass Veyr and that he worked as a royal tracker for Stormfang. The name was close enough to the truth to leave a bitter taste in his mouth. He told her about silver ash smugglers and the ambush near the northern border. He explained that the poison had trapped him in wolf form. He did not mention the throne. Ellie listened quietly. When he finished, she stirred honey into her tea. You speak like someone accustomed to giving orders. I have led men. Rowan said the northern gate was failing. He worries too much. You wear a royal mark. Many Stormfang trackers do. Ellie looked at him over the rim of her cup. The wolf disappears whenever you appear. A remarkable coincidence. You use that phrase when you lie. Cassian paused. Ellie took another sip. She did not press further. Not because she believed him. Because she had learned that frightened creatures sometimes required patience before they offered the truth. That morning, Cassian repaired the leaking roof. He split enough wood for a week, carried 2 barrels of water without effort, and stared at Ellie's broken gate until it seemed to repair itself out of fear. Ellie tried to help. Her skirt caught on a nail. She slipped from the porch. Cassian caught her around the waist. For a quiet moment, neither moved. Her scent warmed between them. His wolf became completely still. Ellie's palm rested over his heart. The strange warmth beneath her breastbone opened. One gentle feeling crossed the connection between them. Not possession, not command. Recognition. Home. Ellie stepped away first. This is becoming a pattern. You falling? You catching me? I could stop. She glanced at the muddy ground. Let us not make reckless decisions. For several days, Cassian remained at Rainmoss Cottage. The poison weakened slowly. He learned that Ellie always gave away the best loaves and kept the burned ones for herself. He learned that she spoke to birds as though they were neighbors. He learned that she did not own a second proper chair because she had never expected anyone to stay. Ellie learned that Cassian did not know his favorite food. You must have one, she said while stirring oat soup. I eat what is served. That is not an answer. It has always been enough. Ellie looked at him. The loneliness in that simple sentence felt larger than the cottage. The next morning, she made cinnamon apples. Cassian took one bite and went silent. Ellie smiled. There, now you have an answer. At night, she read beside the fire while Cassian shifted into wolf form and stretched across the rug. When the foolish nobleman in her book lied again, Cassian growled. Ellie looked down at him. You have very strong opinions for someone hiding half his life. His ear flattened. She smiled and continued reading. Before bed, she sewed his damaged towel. Across one corner, she embroidered 2 words. Suit's towel. Cassian saw it the next morning. You did not. I did. I am not using that. That evening, he used it. Ellie eventually had to return to Briar Hollow for medicine and supplies. Cassian insisted on accompanying her. He wore a dark cloak with the hood pulled low. Ellie studied him before they left. You look suspicious. I am avoiding attention. You look like a man planning to steal a church bell. Cassian adjusted the hood. Better? No. Now you look like a taller man planning to steal it. Briar Hollow smelled of fresh bread, wet wool, and wood smoke. Wagons rattled across the stone road. Merchants called from striped awnings. Children chased one another beside the fountain. As Ellie passed, whispers followed. Calamity Ellie. She brought another stranger home. Perhaps this one will survive her cooking. Cassian's shoulders stiffened. Ellie touched his sleeve. Please do not frighten the village. I have not spoken. That has never stopped you. At the apothecary, she purchased moontime and clean bandages. When she stepped outside, Garrick Holt waited beside the fountain with 2 pack guards. You received my notice, he said. I received a paper with your name on it. That does not make it lawful. Several villagers slowed to listen. Garrick smiled coldly. Rainmoss Cottage belongs to Grafin Pack. An unmated Omega cannot hold Borderland without an Alpha sponsor. Ellie's cheeks warmed, but she did not lower her gaze. My mother paid the settlement fee. Your mother is dead. Cassian moved. Ellie caught his sleeve. Not yet. She opened her satchel and removed several faded documents tied with blue thread. My mother paid for the land, she said. My father paid every winter tax. I have the records. Garrick barely looked at them. Old paper does not change pack authority. No, Ellie replied, but a royal grant does. She unfolded the last document. At the bottom rested a black wax seal bearing a silver flame enclosed by a broken crown. Cassian went still. The Hearthkeeper mark. Garrick's face tightened. That seal is false. Then request a royal review. He reached for the page. Ellie pulled it away. Garrick caught her wrist. Cassian crossed the distance in 1 step. He did not raise his voice. Release her. The air changed. Garrick's fingers opened before his mind understood the command. The 2 guards lowered their eyes. Cassian stood beside Ellie, calm and terrible beneath the hood. Garrick recovered slowly. You should teach your servant his place. Ellie lifted her chin. He is not my servant. Cassian glanced at her. A small smile touched her mouth. He is much too difficult. A few villagers laughed. Garrick's face darkened. This is not over. After he left, an elderly woman near the fountain saw the edge of the signet ring beneath Cassian's glove. Her basket slipped from her hands. She bent quickly. Ellie turned toward the sound. By the time she looked back, the woman was gathering apples from the ground. They continued across the square. Ellie's boot caught the hem of Cassian's cloak. The hood fell. A statue of Alpha King Cassian Veyr stood behind him. The stone face was younger and more polished, but the resemblance was unmistakable. Ellie looked at the statue, then at Cassian, then back again. He pulled the hood over his face. We should leave. You have the king's eyes. Stormfang blood runs through several families. And his face. An unfortunate family resemblance. Ellie's gaze narrowed. You are a terribly liar. I am beginning to understand that. They reached the forest before sunset. The first silver-tipped arrow struck the tree beside Ellie's head. Cassian turned. Men wearing scentless masks stepped from the shadows. A second arrow flew. Cassian shifted before it reached her. Black fur erupted across his skin. The crown wolf landed between Ellie and the attackers, his silver eye burning through the dusk. The first assassin never reached her. Cassian struck him hard enough to send him into the wet leaves. Another raised a blade, coated in silver ash. The wolf twisted aside. Steel cut through black fur along his shoulder. Ellie felt the pain beneath her breastbone. Suit. Cassian heard her even through the violence. His head turned. One assassin lifted a crossbow toward Ellie. Cassian leaped between them. The bolt grazed his ribs. His scent turned sharp and metallic. The amber eye darkened. He was losing control. Ellie stepped away from the tree. Look at me. Cassian's growl shook the leaves. Come back. His claws dug into the earth. Before Ellie could reach him, Royal horns sounded beyond the trees. Dozens of Stormfang guards entered the clearing. Rowan Vale rode at their front. The assassins scattered. Some fled. Others dropped their weapons when royal swords surrounded them. Rowan dismounted and hurried toward Cassian. Then he stopped. He lowered himself to one knee. Every royal guard followed. Rain fell across bowed heads and dark armor. "Your Majesty," Rowan said. Ellie stopped breathing. The truth settled into place with terrible simplicity. The royal tracker, the signet ring, the statue, the command in his voice. The crown wolf stood before the kneeling soldiers, blood darkening his shoulder. Silver light swept across his body. Fur withdrew. A man appeared in its place. Rowan removed his cloak and draped it over Cassian's shoulders. His expression remained solemn until he noticed the faded towel still tied around the king's neck. Soot's towel. Rowan's mouth tightened. Cassian gave him one warning look. Rowan immediately studied a nearby tree. Ellie might have laughed on another day. Instead, she stared at the man she had fed, argued with, and trusted beside her fire. "You are Alpha King Cassian Veyr." He rose slowly. "Yes." The word hurt more than she had expected. "You told me you were a tracker. I was tracking the silver ash shipments myself." That was not the lie. Cassian stepped toward her. Ellie stepped back. The movement stopped him more completely than any blade. "I intended to tell you." "When?" His silence answered badly. Rowan approached with a captured assassin. A broken silver emblem had been found beneath the man's clothing. The private mark of Lord Malrek Dane, Cassian's senior counselor. "The palace is no longer secure," Rowan said. "Neither is she." Cassian looked at Ellie. "Come with me to Stormkeep." "Why?" "So I can protect you." Ellie's expression tightened. "You could not trust me with your name, but now I am supposed to trust you with my life?" "I was wrong." "Yes." He accepted the answer without defense. Ellie searched his face, looking for the man who had sat in her kitchen wearing her father's clothes. Perhaps he was still there. That made the deception hurt more. "Was any part of you real?" she asked. Cassian's jaw tightened. "The piece I found with you was real." But the answer came one heartbeat too late. Ellie turned away. The bond pulled painfully between them as she walked toward Rainmoss Cottage. Behind her, the royal guard remained kneeling. For the first time in his life, the Alpha King possessed no command strong enough to make one gentle Omega stay. Stormkeep welcomed its king with bells, bowed heads, and a silence colder than the rain. Cassian crossed the great hall beneath black and silver banners while servants lowered their eyes. Advisors followed with reports. Generals waited for commands. The High Council demanded explanations. Yet all he heard was Ellie's question. "Was any part of you real?" That night, he stood alone before the fire in his private chambers. It was larger than Ellie's entire kitchen. It produced perfect heat. It offered no comfort. His wolf paced beneath his skin. Home. Cassian closed his eyes. Rainmoss Cottage could not be home. It was too small. The roof leaked. One chair leaned dangerously to the left. And yet he remembered lavender soap, cinnamon apples, crooked shelves, and a woman who had pinched his nose to make him swallow medicine. Home. Across the kingdom, rumors reached Briar Hollow before sunrise. The Omega had bewitched the king. She had trapped him in wolf form. She had poisoned his blood. By noon, someone had painted witch across Ellie's gate. She stood in the rain with a bucket and brush, scrubbing the letters from the wood. Martha Bell arrived carrying bread beneath her shawl. "You should leave it," the older woman said. "Let everyone see the handwriting is uglier than the accusation." Ellie almost smiled. "I prefer my gate without insults." Very demanding. Together, they cleaned until the wood showed through again. Ellie had spent years believing silence kept the peace. Now she understood that silence often protected the people causing harm. At Stormkeep, Lady Seraphine Ardent stood before the High Council in a silver gown. For years, the council had presented her as the most suitable future Luna. She had noble blood, political training, and no patience for romantic rumors. "The kingdom needs stability," she said. Lord Malrek stood beside her. "Then His Majesty must deny this false bond," he replied. "The Omega manipulated him while he was poisoned." Cassian rose from the throne. "She saved my life." Malrek spread his hands. "She is no one." The room chilled. Cassian descended the steps. "She is Elowen Marris." No one spoke. Seraphine studied Malrek. She had known him since childhood. She also knew when he pushed too hard. That evening, she quietly requested the transport ledgers for every Silver Ash shipment authorized during the last 6 months. Several pages carried her family seal. Seraphine had not signed them. Cassian left Stormkeep before she could report what she had found. He rode south alone. No guards. No royal cloak. No crown. Rain followed him into Greyfin. When Ellie opened her door, he stood on the porch, soaked through. For one unreasonable second, she saw soot. Then she remembered the throne. What are you doing here? Failing to stay away. That sounds inconvenient. It has been unbearable. Her heart softened against her will. She moved aside. Cassian entered and looked toward the hearth. The fire had gone out. He knelt and attempted to light it. He used too much kindling. Smoke filled the cottage. Ellie coughed and opened both windows. The Alpha King of Valadrake cannot build a fire? I have people for that. Yes, I noticed. Cassian looked offended. The expression was so much like the wolf that a smile escaped her. He watched it as though it were sunrise. I stayed at first because your fire weakened the poison, he said. Then I stayed because you spoke to me like I was not a crown. Ellie's smile faded. You lied. I did. You could have trusted me. I have not trusted anyone in a very long time. That does not make it hurt less. No, his voice softened. It only explains why I was foolish enough to risk the one place where I finally felt safe. Cassian removed his signet ring. He placed it on the table and knelt before her. Not as a king, as the wounded man she had found beneath the bridge. I will not ask you to forgive me because of instinct or bond, he said. I only ask that you judge me by what I choose now. Before Ellie could answer, horses thundered outside. Royal soldiers surrounded the cottage. Their captain carried a sealed order. Elowen Marris, he announced, under the Crown Preservation Act, you are ordered into protective custody pending investigation into unlawful influence over the Alpha King. Cassian rose. The windows trembled beneath his growl. The captain swallowed. The High Council declared temporary royal impairment before His Majesty returned to Stormkeep. Until the council votes to restore full authority, the emergency order cannot be dismissed by the king alone. Malrek had prepared the trap carefully. If Cassian fought his own guards, the council would claim Ellie controlled him. If Ellie fled, they would call her guilty. Cassian's eyes turned silver. Ellie reached for his hand. Do not destroy my porch. No promises. Cassian. He looked down at her. Ellie's fingers tightened around his. I will go. No. If you stop them by force, Malrek wins. Cassian understood. The realization made his expression colder than anger. Then I go with you. The captain opened his mouth. Cassian looked at him. The man reconsidered. Stormkeep had never looked less like a palace. To Ellie, it felt like the inside of a blade. Black columns rose beneath a vaulted ceiling. Silver banners hung perfectly still. Hundreds of wolves filled the royal hall. Alphas, nobles, council members, and pack representatives from across Valadrake. Every eye followed the Omega in the simple gray ceremonial dress. The gown was too long. Ellie caught the hem beneath her shoe for the third time before reaching the center of the hall. Rowan leaned closer. Are you all right? If the council does not condemn me, she whispered, this dress may finish the job. His mouth twitched. At the far end of the hall, Cassian stood beside the throne. He did not sit. The crown rested untouched on the black marble seat. Lord Malrek entered the center of the chamber. Elowen Marris concealed the king, he announced. She used forbidden herbs, ancient fire magic, and an unnatural bond to control the crown wolf. Murmurs moved through the hall. Ellie raised her chin. I treated a wounded animal. A nobleman scoffed. Malrek smiled. A wounded animal who happened to be the Alpha King. I did not know who he was. And yet he refused to leave you. That happens when someone is fed regularly. A few quiet laughs escaped. Cassian almost smiled. Malrek lifted a glass vial containing gray powder. Silver ash was found in her cottage. Ellie stared at it. That is not mine. Of course not. Cassian descended from the throne. That substance was planted. Malrek turned toward him. Your Majesty, the bond has compromised your judgment. Cassian stopped beside Ellie. He took the silver-threaded cord around her wrists and snapped it apart. She stands beside me, he said, not beneath accusation. The authority in his voice silenced the hall. Malrek's smile thinned. As you command. Lady Seraphine entered through a side door, carrying several ledgers. Malrek saw them. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. Seraphine stopped beside Rowan. I examined the transport records, she said. Silver ash shipments were authorized using my family's seal. Malrek recovered quickly. Then your house should answer for them. My father destroyed that seal 3 years ago. She opened the ledger. The signature was forged. The shipments were received by an estate belonging to Lord Malrek's nephew. The hall erupted in whispers. Malrek lowered the vial. A faint click sounded beneath his sleeve. Cassian went rigid. Ellie felt the pain through the bond before he made a sound. Heat tore beneath her breastbone. Cassian? He dropped to one knee. Black fur spread across his arms. Bones shifted violently. The crown wolf erupted into the hall with a roar that shook dust from the ceiling. People screamed. Guards raised silver spears. Cassian crashed into a pillar. His silver eye burned wild. His amber eye had nearly vanished into black. Contain him, Malrek shouted. The soldiers formed a circle. Ellie saw gray powder across Malrek's glove. He had activated the poison. The crown wolf lunged. Spears lowered. Stop! No one listened. The ancient moonfire beside the throne suddenly flared. Silver light swept across the hall. The Hearthkeeper mark on Ellie's mother's pendant began to glow. A silver flame enclosed by a broken crown. Matching symbols carved beneath the marble floor awakened one by one. Malrek stepped backward. That bloodline is dead. Ellie looked at him. No, you only tried to bury it. Rowan caught her arm as she moved toward Cassian. You cannot go near him. She looked at the wolf who had once placed his head in her lap. Yes, she said. I can. Her foot caught the ceremonial hem again. Ellie sighed, bent down, and removed both shoes. Then, she gathered the heavy skirt in her hands and walked barefoot across the cold marble. One spear lowered in front of her. She pushed it aside. Move. The guard obeyed. At the center of the hall, the crown wolf turned toward her. Blood darkened his teeth. Silver fire reflected in his eyes. Ellie kept walking. Suit. The name crossed the hall more gently than a prayer. The wolf stopped. His jaws remained open. A growl trembled through his chest, but his silver eye found her through the poison. Around them, soldiers held their weapons ready. Ellie moved closer. You ruined my clean laundry, she whispered. You stole my blanket. You pretended to sleep to avoid medicine. How? One black ear moved. A nervous laugh escaped among the nobles. Ellie's eyes softened. You protected me when you thought you were only a beast. Cassian lowered his head by 1 inch. She placed her palm against his forehead. Pain rushed through the bond, sharp enough to steal her breath. She did not pull away. Breathe with me. The moonfire rose. Silver light traveled across the marble and gathered around Ellie's feet. Cassian inhaled. Ellie exhaled. His breathing followed hers. The metallic scent weakened. The darkness faded from his amber eye. With a broken sound, the crown wolf collapsed against her. Ellie wrapped both arms around his massive head. I knew you were still there. Silver light covered his body. Fur withdrew. A moment later, Cassian knelt before her in human form, exhausted but conscious. The hall remained silent. Malrek recovered first. You see, he shouted. She commands him. She has proven the charge herself. Moonfire swept across the floor. It reached the silver ash staining Malrek's glove. The powder turned black. Seraphine raised the forged ledgers. The shipments came from his estate. Rowan drew his sword. Malrek reached inside his sleeve and produced a narrow blade. He lunged toward Ellie. Cassian moved. He caught Malrek's wrist before the blade touched her. The wolf remained close beneath his skin. Everyone in the hall felt it. Cassian could have broken Malrek's neck. Instead, he twisted the weapon away and forced the traitor to his knees. Control. Choice. The crown wolf obeyed the man rather than ruling him. You poisoned your king, Cassian said. You hunted the Hearthkeepers. You attempted to seize the crown through fear. Malrek struggled. I protected Valadrake from weakness. Cassian's gaze moved toward Ellie. No, you feared anyone who proved power could exist without cruelty. Rowan placed Malrek in chains. Before the council, the nobles, and every pack representative in Valadrake, the conspiracy collapsed. Cassian turned back to Ellie. Then he lowered himself onto one knee. A king kneeling before an Omega. Murmurs moved through the hall. Cassian took her hand carefully. When the kingdom saw a missing king, you saw a creature freezing in the rain, he said. When others feared my wolf, you gave him your fire. His voice softened. You stayed when I had no crown and no name worth offering. I will not claim you because instinct demands it. He looked into her eyes. I choose you, but the choice must also be yours. Ellie looked around the hall. She saw nobles who had once called Omegas lesser. She saw Seraphine standing with the evidence that had saved them. She saw Rowan trying not to look at the towel still hanging from Cassian's shoulder. Then she looked at the man who had found peace beside her fire. I have conditions. Several council members looked alarmed. Cassian almost smiled. I expected nothing less. No Omega will lose a home because she has no mate. Agreed. Hearthkeepers will never belong to the crown. Agreed. Garrick Holt will be investigated for illegally taking Omega land. He already is. Ellie lifted an eyebrow. Cassian continued. And he will never hold authority again. Good. She leaned closer. And you will stop pretending to sleep when medicine is involved. Cassian's expression became solemn. That condition seems unnecessarily cruel. Laughter moved through the hall. Even Seraphine smiled. Ellie touched her forehead to his. I choose you, Cassian. The mate bond opened fully. Warmth filled the royal hall like sunrise after a long winter. It did not feel like a chain. It felt like two doors opening at once. In the months that followed, Valadrake changed slowly. Then all at once, Garrick Holt was removed from Grafin authority after royal records proved he had raised fees illegally and seized property from unmated Omegas. New laws protected the right of every adult wolf to own land, regardless of rank or mate status. Lady Seraphine became head of the Royal Records Office and gained a reputation for discovering corruption before breakfast. Rowan claimed this made her more frightening than the crown wolf. She accepted the compliment. Rainmoss Cottage became a sanctuary for Omegas with nowhere else to go. A wooden sign hung beside the repaired gate. No one is lesser here. Ellie became Luna of Valadrake, but she refused to abandon the little house where everything had begun. At Stormkeep, Cassian built a private room with books, 2 mismatched chairs, and a stone hearth modeled after hers. He ordered the finest furniture in the kingdom. Ellie replaced one perfect chair with the crooked chair from Rainmoss. It leans, Cassian said. It has character. It is dangerous. So were you. He had no answer to that. On the first rainy evening of autumn, Ellie entered the room and found the crown wolf stretched across the entire rug. Again, firelight moved across his black fur. The silver mark beneath his throat glowed softly. Ellie placed her hands on her hips. You have a kingdom, 3 palaces, and at least 40 fireplaces. One silver eye opened. Why do you still need mine? Cassian rested his head on her foot and closed his eyes. His tail struck the floor once. Ellie laughed and sat beside him. Outside, rain whispered against the palace windows. Inside, cedar smoke mingled with wild pear, warm oats, and honey. The Alpha King had not refused to leave because of the fire. He had stayed because, for the first time in his life, someone had looked beyond the crown, beyond the beast, and seen a lonely soul worth bringing home. So, Ellie and Cassian's story had finally reached its quiet place beside the fire. Are you still here with me, after everything they went through? Then maybe this story touched something familiar. Being betrayed hurts. Being misunderstood hurts in a different way. But Ellie never begged anyone to see her value. She did not chase Cassian when the truth broke her trust. She stepped away, carried her pain with dignity, and gave herself enough space to choose again, not because fate pushed her, but because her own heart was ready. That may be the lesson worth keeping. You cannot control who lies to you, who judges you, or who fails to understand your kindness. You can control what you accept, where you place your energy, and whether you abandon yourself just to keep someone else. And honestly, anyone who steals your blanket, your bacon, and your favorite rug should probably work very hard to earn forgiveness. Ellie chose love, but she chose herself first. If that message stayed with you, leave one word in the comments, dignity, and gently. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe so we can meet again beside the next fire.